We'll have the crew work on that. This is Randy Blythe. He's the frontman for the heavy metal band Lamb of God. They've sold millions of records and had 4 Grammy nominations, but his life and career were nearly derailed by a charge of manslaughter involving the death of a young fan. Randy Blythe shares his story in the new memoir, Dark Days. Good morning, Randy.
Good morning. Back to you, Cheryl.
I knew you wanted to say that. We're going to talk about that ahead here on Virginia This Morning.
Virginia This Morning on CBS 6.
And good morning. Thanks so much for joining us here on this Friday for Virginia This Morning. I'm Cheryl Miller. Our first guest has written a newly released memoir called Dark Days. Richmonder D. Randall Blythe, known as Randy, is the frontman for the heavy metal band Lamb of God. They've released 9 CDs with a new one set to drop in just a couple of weeks. The band has sold millions of records worldwide and has had several Grammy nominations. But 3 years ago, Randy was arrested and indicted on a charge of manslaughter involving the death of a young fan in Prague. That incident, incarceration, and trial are part of the story he tells in his new book. Randy Blythe joins us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
You were mentioning a lot of energy here in the studio this morning. You bring some of that to us as well.
I try, put a little smile on people's faces.
And a lot of that comes on stage when you're performing, which is great.
Slightly different energy when we play.
A little bit. We mentioned that a lot of this book comes out of an incident that happened in your life a few years ago. We do want to mention that you were acquitted of these manslaughter charges, so first and foremost for that. This book, what was the idea behind writing it? Why did you want to tell this story of that incident and then part of your life as well?
Well, there was a lot of news coverage about this back at home in America when I was still locked up in the Czech Republic, and there was a lot of misinformation because most of the pieces that were coming out were via Google Translate of Czech tabloid newspapers. So it wasn't exactly clear. And to this day, people ask me all the time, what really happened there. So I wanted to write a book to clarify the situation, And also, I think there's some aspects of my story that could be useful to some people. Maybe could take it and, learn from some of my experiences, because that's what I try and do now, is not make so many mistakes of my own, but learn from other people's experiences.
One of the main things I got out of reading the book is that you were very open and very honest about everything.
Yeah, that's what a good writer is, I think, unless you're writing fiction. Yeah, I've always been a pretty open person. I'm barely restrained right now. So.
Well, it's early morning for a rock and roll star, so
that's all right.
That makes a difference. What is the takeaway you want for people from this book? You say you want them to learn from some of your lessons. What are the biggest lessons that you want people to learn from this book?
Well, I don't, when I say learn from, I don't want to come across as pedantic and preachy and moralizing or anything, but basically the story of the book of my arrest, incarceration, and trial and exoneration is really a framework that carries along the theme of personal accountability, which I believe is something that is rather lacking in today's world. So for me, this was a very, very scary experience. I was not some sort of stoic, tough guy. It was scary, but I did what I had to do. I returned for trial, after I was let out on bail. I did that because I felt ethically compelled to do so. And that's what I'd really like for people to take away from the book, that it's okay to do the right thing even when you're really scared.
And covering the story as a news person, we did follow your story.
Oh, yes, I know.
And when you came back, when released on bail, you didn't have to go back. People, I understand, told you don't go back.
Yes, everyone and their uncle told me not to go back. And I would have never been extradited. The United States government didn't cooperate with an investigation that the Czech government wanted at first. They just said this isn't worth our time, but they never informed me of any of this. So, but for me, it just felt like the right thing to do. It's just I had to follow my inner moral compass.
One of the interesting things I found in reading this, you were talking about the fact that the parents of the young man who died never really confronted you. And I think in a way you were able to empathize with them because you lost a child in your life, but not anywhere near in the same way. But as a parent losing a child, you could empathize with them.
Sure. And, I think that's one thing you really have to. When you're dealing with people, I think there's so many people have so many preconceived notions about people, of whether they're from a different culture, different economic bracket, or a different country or whatever. I think you have to look for things you can empathize with people with, because I tour around the world all the time. And what I've discovered is that people are the same everywhere. If you can find some sort of commonality, whether it be in tragedy or in something you both enjoy, you can have empathy for this person. You can try and understand them. The world might be a better place if people tried to understand each other. It's a shocking idea, I know, but, you know.
And some of the stories that you're sharing in your new music come from something that you wrote while you were incarcerated.
Yeah, just 2 of the songs on the new record dealt with that, and I wrote those while I was in there because I'm a writer. That's what I do. You know, it wasn't like I was thinking this is going to be great source material for the new Lamb of God record, and they come from a very real place. So I didn't get out and write a whole record about going to prison or anything. I'm not a gangster rapper, even though unlike some gangster rappers, I've actually been to prison. You know, but I'm not going to front about something like that. And it doesn't seem appropriate to use as a creative well, you know. But yeah, the book, if people want to know about the whole prison experience, they could read the book, and that'll clarify everything. And the 2 songs that are on the record that come from that, they're real songs.
And it's interesting, in the bio that's written on the back cover of the book, it says, this is your first book. Does that mean there's going to be a second book?
Oh, yes, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th.
So is this tapped into something new in your creative source?
No, it just showed me that I've always wanted to write books, you know. I've always wanted to do that. This just showed me that I could sit down and have the discipline to work in the long-form prose format, you know. And that's the toughest thing, is just sitting down and facing the blank page. It's not the writing itself, it's looking at it, you know.
And was this cathartic for you in having to relive this experience to write the book?
I wouldn't call it cathartic, you know, or, you know, any sort of therapeutic writing. I'd already come to terms with what had happened, you know, as it was happening. But the story needed to be told, and a literary agent convinced me to tell it. I went to tell it artfully before my memories of the place faded. I'm a big fan of descriptive writing, and I think I did a good job of creating a well-crafted book.
Well, I have to say it is well written.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story. It is called Dark Days, and it is the truth. Lamb of God's new album will be released on the Friday, July 24th. You can hear new music there, and Randy Blythe will be signing copies of Dark Days tonight at 7 p.m. at Urban Farmhouse in Scotts Addition. This is a ticketed event presented by Fountain Bookstore. Best of luck with everything, Randy.
Thank you so much,
and you're
Cheryl.
back on tour as well. We're going to send it over to Nikki D.